The date is February 28, 2020. This is the news on PBCJ. I am Simone Absalom. Health and Wellness Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton says the government's decision to expand the travel restrictions to 4 additional countries was owing to a risk assessment and a recent World Health Organization (WHO) report.
Based on the risk assessment and the World Health Organization situation report number 37 on the COVID-19 dated February 26, 2020, additional countries will be incorporated into the travel restrictions as outlined previously, involving China in particular.
On Thursday, Mr. Tufton told the nation of the expanded restrictions.
The countries to be added for travel restrictions are as follows: Italy, which currently, based on that WHO report, has 322 cases and 11 deaths. South Korea, or Republic of Korea, with 1,261 cases and 12 deaths. Singapore, with 91 cases, so far no deaths reported. And Iran, with 95 cases and 15 deaths. Of note is that we're reviewing the situation with Japan, which also has some in-country transmission, 164 cases and 1 death, and will advise whether that country is to be included in the list of restrictions in due course.
He said the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade is in dialogue with representatives of the countries. Dr. Tufton was speaking during a media briefing at the ministry's offices in New Kingston on Thursday, where he provided an update on COVID-19.
It means, therefore, that all Jamaicans who have visited Italy, South Korea, Iran, and Singapore in the last 14 days will have landing privileges in accordance with the law, but will be subjected to a health assessment and quarantine based on that health assessment. Persons who have visited Italy, South Korea, Iran, and Singapore in the last 14 days and who do not have permanent residency or marriage exemption in Jamaica will not be granted landing privileges at any of the country's ports of entry. Non-Jamaicans who have permanent residence and marriage exemptions who are landed and who have visited Italy, South Korea, Iran, and Singapore in the last 14 days will be subject to a health assessment and quarantine. Persons who have visited Italy, South Korea, Iran, and Singapore and have been granted landing privileges and classified by the Ministry of Health and Wellness as high risk will be quarantined in government facilities, and those who are assessed by the Ministry of Health and Wellness as low risk will be quarantined at home under the supervision of the parish health departments.
The minister also gave an update on persons who have arrived in Jamaica from China and the subsequent quarantine and isolations that have resulted.
As of February 26, 141 persons arrived in Jamaica who had been in China 14 days prior to arrival. There are now 5 persons in quarantine in government facilities. There are 5 persons in home quarantine, and there are now 2 persons in isolation for whom we are awaiting test results.
Chief Medical Officer CMO Dr. Jacqueline Bessessa McKenzie gave an update on a patient in isolation at the Mandeville Regional Hospital with symptoms similar to COVID-19.
We have in fact isolated a case. The person does not actually meet the case definition for coronavirus, but we think that the person has enough symptoms for us to have them under investigation. So Mandeville Hospital is one of the hospitals that, coming out of Ebola, we had put in place a isolation unit, and so therefore they do have that facility in place, and we were able to move that person to that unit while we are conducting investigations. So I just want to report that at this time that person remains stable. We expect to get back the test result today.
Dr. Bessessa McKenzie was speaking at a press briefing on Thursday at the Health and Wellness Ministry's New Kingston offices. Staying with health, 30 Cuban medical professionals arrived in Jamaica on Thursday, further strengthening the island's health system. They will join the 206 Cuban medical professionals who are currently working in public health facilities. On Tuesday, both Jamaica and Cuba signed a renewal of a technical cooperation agreement for another 3 years. Health and Wellness Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton said the agreement was critical.
Without this partnership, Jamaica and Jamaica's healthcare system would be weaker. The reality is that the Cuban medical personnel who have come here have played a very critical role in terms of supporting our healthcare system at all levels, but primarily at the level of our hospitals.
Cuban ambassador to Jamaica, Inés Fernandez, hailed the agreement as a milestone.
The agreement we signed this morning gives response to the demanding times we are living today and will contribute to face the current complex challenges in the health sectors.
The energy and climate ministers of the Americas met to debate in Montego Bay on Thursday to speak about investment opportunities and energy resilience. The fourth Energy and Climate Partnership of the Americas ministerial meeting is being held under the theme Energy Resilience and Investment Opportunities. Prime Minister Andrew Holness and Secretary General of the Organization of American States, Luis Almagro, along with Minister of Science, Energy and Technology of Jamaica, Favour Williams, will be among speakers at the opening ceremony.
The world, more often than not, is becoming a very unpredictable place. And change is the only thing that is predictable. There will be change. There will be disruption. And therefore, we have to embrace it. And we have to plan for it in all aspects of government, especially in energy.
Income inequality and lack of opportunity are undermining the dreams of millions of men and women who have the talent, the desire, and the strength to build a better future for themselves and for their families. It is our job to level the field and work to ensure that every man, woman, and child is afforded the opportunity to realize to their full potential. Providing access to modern, affordable, and clean energy products and services is a big part of the solution.
History will provide a scathing rebuke of this generation of leaders if we fail to move from words to action and from plans to implementation. Time is against us. We must have the robust frameworks, the legislative, regulatory, policy, institutional mechanisms to allow countries to address fundamental and systemic challenges that hinder sustainable growth and development.
The discussions over the two-day conference will focus on issues related to financing mechanisms for clean and renewable energy, investment opportunities in energy-efficient electric mobility, as well as strategies to increase private sector participation in the development of energy infrastructure. Jamaica Gasoline Retailers Association, JGRA, is expected to attend the Parliamentary Committee reviewing of the Occupational Safety and Health Act bill to discuss issues arising from last week's fire at the Mandeville Fesco gas station. 1 man was killed and 6 onlookers hospitalized after the gas station was extensively damaged by fire on Friday, the source of which is still unclear. It also damaged at least 12 vehicles parked in the vicinity. The issue was raised minutes after the Joint Select Committee, chaired by Minister of State in the Ministry of Labour and Social Security Xavier Main, resumed the discussions at Gordon House on Thursday. The Occupational Safety and Health Act bill has been making its way through the House since 2017. Opposition Senator Wentworth Skeffrey highlighted the importance of the bill in seeking to ensure the safety and health of persons at their workplaces.
As a committee, we want to use everybody to understand the importance of this bill to enhance safety and health at the workplace. But as a Manchester man, I want to use the opportunity to express condolences to the family of the gentleman who died and other members who were injured And to the owner of the establishment, we hope that he will be on his feet quickly again, and we ensure all safety measures take place as we move forward. And for all such establishment, and that this bill is even important to ensure safety going forward.
Minister Main said that although he has not had the details of the fire, he considered it an unfortunate situation.
The situation in Manchester is regretted. I mean, I have not seen a report as to the details surrounding the circumstances of the death, but from what I would have seen or would have read, certainly it's an unfortunate situation. And if it is that the death results from a safety and health breach, then it underscores the importance of a bill like this. The death is regrettable.
He, however, noted that the private sector, including the JGRA, the umbrella body for gas station operators, has ignored invitations to become involved in the committee's deliberations. Government member Senator Cavan Gale said that the accident brings into sharp focus the issues the committee has been addressing for several months.
What are the guidelines of operation in terms of their line of business? And I'm particularly concerned about, given this situation, the inspection and the schedule of any such inspections to ensure compliance. And the third thing would be their recommendations. But so I urge also that in asking them to come here is not just to come to make a presentation, but also to, if they can go through the bill, if they can look at it, that would certainly be helpful in terms of these proceedings.
Gale also criticized the lack of precaution at service stations, which he said suggests that the employees were not aware of the dangers that exist in a petrol environment. He said that the gasoline retailers need to explain the operational guidelines in terms of their line of business, the need for inspection and for the scheduling of inspections to ensure compliance, as well as their recommendations for the final legislation. Senator Skeffrey said he was concerned about the training of persons employed to gas stations, as well as the requirements for employment. The committee is expected to meet next Thursday, March 5, at Gordon House. Licensed firearm holders are being urged to exercise greater care for weapons. Superintendent of Police Gary Francis, the commanding officer for the Manchester Police Division, made the call following Monday's theft of $13 million worth of jewelry and a licensed firearm from a house in Spurtree. According to police, a Glock 17C 9mm pistol and a 37 9mm cartridge was stolen. Additionally, 2 Rolex watches with an estimated value of $80,000. 1 Marc Jacobs watch priced at $5,000 and an engagement ring costing $3,500 and other jewelry amounting to more than $5,000 were taken. The police have since launched an investigation into the matter. Jamaicans can now bring their complaints to the officially opened Industrial Disputes Tribunal Western Division office, which is housed at Blue Diamond Complex Iron Shore, Montego Bay, St. James. Minister of Labour and Social Security Shahini Robinson officially opened the office this week. The new IDT Western Division office will seek to protect the welfare of employers and employees in the parishes of St. James, Hanover, Trelawney and Westmoreland. The US dollar is being traded at $138.02, down by 62 cents, according to the Bank of Jamaica's daily exchange trading summary. The summary also states that the Canadian dollar is being traded at $103.02, down from $105.80, while the British pound sterling is being traded at $178.03, down from $178.99. In regional news, Barbadian health authorities are conducting tests on a member on board the cruise liner Carnival Fascination, docked just of the island. 37 Barbadians are also on board the vessel, which was headed to St. Lucia Thursday morning, along with 140 others who will disembark to make a connecting flight to the United Kingdom. Barbados Prime Minister Mia Mottley says 2 of them tested positive for influenza A, but the third person had stopped showing any symptoms.
In the same way that the ship took its ultimate precaution and isolated the crew member, and that their first report to us and to the St. Lucian government, which was shared with us, had on it, on the medical health declaration form, that the passenger, who is also from Italy, from Pisa, which is not in the red zone, but is in the center of Italy, northern central area, that in the same way that they were exhibiting full precaution, we would also do so.
Mottley says the vessel will be thoroughly inspected by local health officials. She explained that St. Lucia does not have the capacity to test for the coronavirus, while stressing that the government has an obligation to protect Barbadian citizens on board.
In addition to our citizens, 37 of whom are on board this ship, to whom we have an absolute responsibility, not just a fiduciary responsibility, but an obligation to protect. We are therefore ensuring that the ship can come into harbour. Arrangements have been made. We've spoken to the General Secretary of the Barbados Workers' Union. We've spoken to the port authorities. We have spoken to the medical authorities. The Minister of Health would have had his emergency Operations Committee meeting early this morning, pursuant to all of the actions and discussions that we took all through the night and right into the morning. And Barbados is ready for what we have to do. First, to quarantine the Barbadian passengers from off of the ship. And I am here to tell you that the work that the Minister of Health and the ministry officials have done, and the CMO and his officials have done over the course of the last few weeks, allows us to be in a comfortable position to be able to quarantine all 37 of the Barbadian passengers on the board, should it come to that.
Mottley told journalists at the press conference at government headquarters on Thursday that there is a distinct likelihood that all should be well, but the government will not be taking any chances with the people of Barbados. The Guyana Elections Commission has decided to increase the number of polling places in response to a request made by opposition People's Progressive Party, Civic. Pbcjj reports for Newsroom Guyana.
Following a meeting between GCOM and members of the opposition People's Progressive Party, Civic, the Commission has agreed to establish additional polling places on the east coast of Demerara and Chesney in Region 6. The PPPC is asking for 12 additional polling places in communities which has historically thrown their support behind the party. According to the opposition-nominated GCOM Commissioner Says Gunraj, GCOM has since instructed the Chief Elections Officer Keith Lowenfield to establish the 12 polling places.
While I agree with the reduction and hopefully future elimination of use of private residences as polling stations, logistics and efficiency and accessibility by voters cannot be sacrificed in that regard. And I'm happy that these changes are being made to take that into consideration.
The electoral body has approved 2,339 polling stations for Monday's general and regional elections. There are several polling stations at one polling place, but the PPPC wants the stations to be more dispersed in order to avoid congestion at one location and reduce the distance some voters will have to travel. While GCOM has acceded to PPP's request, government-nominated Commissioner Vincent Alexander said it has not been determined whether the added polling places will be private residences.
It means that there will be a review of the places which are said to be congested, and alternate arrangements may be made, including tentage, including the possibility of tentage to facilitate the less congested conditions.
In those communities, the Commission eliminated private residences as polling places. The alternative in the absence of public buildings is the provision of tents to serve as polling stations in these areas. Pbcjj reporting for the Newsroom.
And in a related story, following what the opposition People's Progressive Party described as a lengthy but fruitful meeting with the Guyana Elections Commission on Tuesday, it is now hopeful that several of its requests would be heeded in the final days to the runoff of the March 2, 2020 polls. Newsroom Guyana's Kurt Campbell tells us more.
Among the PPP's requests are for the electoral body to hand over the written and clear instructions giving to polling day staff, specifically presiding officers and returning officers, to the political party. General Secretary of the PPP, Bar Jagdio, told reporters just after the almost 3-hour-long meeting that this is among 23 issues the PPP wanted to discuss with GCOM. According to Jagdio, the request for the release of the Chief Elections Officer instruction is to guard against capricious action and for any person acting in a partisan manner an ED.
Because we have witnessed this often on the part of GCOM staff. So we ask that the CEO will share the written instructions given to the presiding officers and the ROs, etc.
Jagdio explained too that among some of the issues that can arise in a situation where a polling day staff refuses to allow a candidate into a polling station or refuses to count a ballot for one reason or another.
So that when we have those two in the face of, say, a person acting in a partisan manner, for example, refusing to allow a candidate in or not counting a ballot where the clear intention of the voter is expressed, that we can whip out the CEO's written instruction and say, here are the clear instructions, because often they say, oh, we'd have to call the CEO. And of course, he could never, well, it's hard to find him, and then the issue becomes unresolved.
Jagdio also wants GCOM to say clearly whether his party agents can accompany the deputy returning officer to the RO's office with the statements of poll where it will be opened in the presence of polling agents and observers. Jagdio did not say what commitment the PPP got from GCOM on all of the issues raised at Tuesday's meeting where all commissioners and advisors were present. He would only say that the party is hopeful that the meeting will be a fruitful one once GCOM allows good sense to prevail. Kurt Campbell, Newsroom.
In sports, we're out of the blocks with athletics. The potential imposition of a travel ban from Jamaica to Japan may further jeopardize the country's participation in this summer's Tokyo Olympics. Head of the J3As, Warren Blake, said the organization would suffer financially if the Olympics are cancelled, as it acts as one of their major bargaining tools for sponsorship. Jamaica also recently announced a restriction on travel to and from China. The staging of the Games itself is now shrouded with uncertainty following the continued spread of the coronavirus. This week's announcement by the Ministry of Health that travel restrictions could be placed on Japan has raised further questions over whether or not the nation will be allowed to send athletes to its Summer Olympics if the event is still held. And over to football, as Jamaica's under-20 Reggae Girls team and their coach Xavier Gilbert are still basking in their recent victory, having cleared their first major hurdle in the CONCACAF Women's Under-20 Championship in the Dominican Republic. But while they celebrate their historic win over Canada on Wednesday, and by extension progressing to the knockout round, Gilbert was quick to point out that there is still more work to be done to secure a historic qualification to the World Cup. The girls are set to face Bermuda in the round 16 this weekend. And that's the news on PBCJ. Thanks so very much for making it PBCJ. Remember, we are the People's Station.